What's up, everybody? This is Josh Red from Practical Theism. Just wanted to throw down some thoughts. Happy Sunday, everyone. I actually just got back from Santa Barbara. We were doing a bit of a little getaway. Amber's and my 7-year anniversary is next week, so awesome. The 24th is when we're celebrating that. Just want to throw down some reflections on today's gospel. It's one of the most pivotal, pinnacle points in terms of Jesus' ministry, as it tells us so much about him and who he is. And the reading just goes so beautifully together. You got a story from the Old Testament of God showing Abraham the fulfillment of the covenant, and basically his promise to Abraham that he will make nations of his offspring, right? So that as many as the stars in the sky, so will be the generations and the children of Abraham. And you see that so beautifully played out in the new covenant, right? As covenantal theology goes, the covenant keeps getting more and more inclusive. You go from the covenant of Adam and Eve, which is just a marital covenant between a man and a woman, and it extends out and goes into the family, and then it goes from the family to a tribe to a nation, and from a nation to the universal nation, or the entire world, effectively, as God wills all to be saved and come to a knowledge of Christ. And so I thought that was beautifully married together with the gospel, which is from Luke 9, and then Philippians 3, which talks about, Paul goes on talking about how we are to become imitators of Christ. This, I think, is so fun when you look at scripture and how it goes so beautifully with our nature. We are always imitating things. Think about just the people in the circle of friends that you have around you any single moment of every day, right? We typically conform ourselves to those that we are around and that we're associated with. If we're associated with a bunch of negative people, guess what? We're going to be pretty negative. If we associate ourselves with positive people, goal-oriented people, guess what? We adopt those traits and we naturally pull in those traits. It's why if you swear a lot, for example, look at the people around you. Chances are the people around you swear a lot as well. And that's why it becomes very, very difficult to actually, stay strong and solid in your faith and in, your behaviors when you're around people who don't exhibit those behaviors. So that's something really, really keen to take away there. The other aspect too, though, that we're talking about, as it marries so well together, is Paul talks about how in the future, we're not of this world. Don't be fraternizing with this world, because we're focused on heaven. Heaven's our destination, our final destination, and in which this body, all this, as great and awesome as it may be, it's nothing compared to the glorified body in which God is going to conform us to. And we see a glimpse of that, of what that looks like with the gospel reading as it goes into the transfiguration of Jesus, right? So this is when Jesus is up on the hill and he goes and he's transfigured. There's a light coming from his head. He is assumed into his glorified nature when conversing with Moses and Elijah. This is a pinnacle point, absolutely pinnacle in the ministry, because this is one of the instances where we actually get a true sense of Christ's divinity, right? In all of the scriptures. This point where you see him in his glorified nature, in a sense, it's foreshadowing to what his glorified nature is like. This communion point between divinity and humanity is now here atop a mountain. And what are the disciples doing? They're asleep at the wheel. They don't even recognize it. And how true is that of our own nature? We are confronted with this reality of God in all of his glory. We're confronted with the message of Jesus and what it's calling us to do. And how often are we asleep at the wheel? I'll put my hand up first. I'm asleep at the wheel way more than I'd like to admit. And even with my own agenda, my own preoccupation, my own tiredness, my own laziness. The disciples were tired. They had been with ministry, walking around with Christ for so long. And they were tired, so they slept. Their temporal needs took over from their spiritual calling of what they needed to do, which was actually stay awake as Christ went to pray. And who is he praying with in his glorified, transfigured body? But Moses and Elijah, who were gone. They were in heaven, right? And so this is a foreshadowing of what our the resurrection of our body would come. And there's a lot of controversy around that. It's probably a good topic for another day. But even the Jews of the time, some believed in the resurrection, some didn't. I mean, you may have heard of the the little saying, how do you know who didn't believe in the resurrection? Well, it was the Sadducees, because they're sad. You see, they don't have a resurrection of the body. But there were the Pharisees, and I think it was the Pharisees. There were a lot of Jews who actually believed in the resurrection of the body, and that's carried over into Christianity. And we see that on full display with the Transfiguration. And we're called by Paul, as he says in his ministry, to be imitators of Christ, because he's ultimately, God's going to conform us in the same way to Jesus, in the same way that in the bodily resurrection, in the same way that he is in the Transfiguration. So anyways, just some thoughts down today. Hope they're helpful. Everybody have a great week. Praying for y'all this week, and definitely hit the like button, pound the subscribe button so you can get more of this awesome content. And from all of us here, Practical Theism in my garage. Catch you next time. Thanks.